Alright, welcome back to the channel. Warhammer Man back in the studio, and today we're going to take a look at this week's official prices. So we have our announcements for this week's pre-orders. Unfortunately, it's not as clear-cut as usual, so we'll kind of address that as we come to it. So first and foremost, at the head of this week's releases, we have the Middle-earth strategy battle game, The Lord of the Rings Battle of Osgiliath. And this is a new starter set for the Lord of the Rings game. Does include everything you need to play. The two different books necessary, tokens, dice, little ruler, some terrain, and then your two forces to do battle, including the orcs, the troll versus the rangers, and the warriors of Minas Tirith. And obviously we have some characters in there as well. From what I understand from the Lord of the Rings fans out there, from the players of this game, this is a nice box set. Includes quite a bit of nice quality miniatures, terrain, all that good stuff, and obviously everything you need to play. I personally don't know off the top of my head what the other Lord of the Rings stuff has been priced at, so it's tough comparison. But we see the release date is to be announced, basically. So we don't know right now exactly when this is coming out. There's obviously been some delays. Games Workshop disclosed that. I would treat this as essentially a made-to-order item. The only thing we know is that if you want to get this by Christmas, you need to order it in this week's pre-orders, basically. Price-wise, I think this is overpriced, in my opinion. It's a nice box set and everything, but it is 210 USD, and it's 250 Canadian. So at 210 USD, this is basically the same price that you're going to be paying for like a Kill Team starter set, including like Into the Dark, the new one coming out. Obviously, you get a lot more miniatures. You get terrain in both, dice, rulebooks, all that good stuff. So, the real question is there value in these miniatures the same way there is in, Warhammer, etc.? And unfortunately, obviously the Lord of the Rings IP is huge, and you definitely get what you pay for with the IP and everything. But the actual game and the price Games Workshop assigns to it, is that normal for other games outside of Warhammer 40k and potentially like Sigmar and whatnot? I honestly don't know. It's tough to compare to like alternative companies or alternative IPs. I think it's overpriced. If you were splitting it with a friend at $200, $100 each, and you got some terrain and some rule books to share, and you each have a little force, I guess it's okay. I don't know. It's this to me, if I like, as not being a Lord of the Rings player who doesn't buy Lord of the Rings stuff, if I saw this at 210, it's an immediate pass for me. I have no interest in it. If it was priced more reasonably, let's say like 150, does that change the game? I think closer to $100 than 200, you start appealing to like new potential players. If this is going to be a last ditch effort or like the beginning of the revival of Lord of the Rings, or an attempt at least, I think it should be priced appropriately. This to me is a complete mispricing. This is essentially Middle-earth tax or Lord of the Rings tax, whatever you want to call it. But what is the premium you're paying for here? The models really aren't that nice. From what I understand, the gameplay is actually pretty great. I hear the gameplay is awesome. The truth is, though, that just further shows my point. Everybody complains about how bad Warhammer 40k is and how bad the gameplay is. Everybody talks about how good the gameplay is for this game and how awesome it is. And, or somebody will compare an alternative company that has an alternative game and talk about how great it is. And yet, who is the biggest company? What is the biggest game? It's Warhammer 40k. So the truth is, there must be more to it than how the game plays. It must be the amount of factions you have, or the amount of models you have, or the quality of the models you have, or the amount of other people that are playing the game. Because who cares what the best game is if there's only 2 people playing it and they don't live by you? You care what the best game to actually be able to play is. So in my opinion, this is a complete miss. You guys will have to let me know, Lord of the Rings players out there, is this a reasonable price for the Lord of the Rings games? When I last purchased one of these was way, way back in the day for my brother for like a birthday present. And when I purchased it, it was closer to like $100 for the starter set. That was a long time ago. So I don't expect the prices to be the same. But would I buy somebody this as a present now? Do I know anybody that's interested in this? I honestly don't. So to me, this is a big miss at 210. But again, you guys let me know in the comments what you think. as obviously I'm curious about your opinions. I did not get pricing specifically on these 4 box sets as well. For whatever reason, they were left off. I guess because maybe they're coming back. I think these are old battle hosts that were previously available, and it's sort of like a relaunch. I'm not honestly sure. That's typically why something doesn't make the price list, if it's old and coming back. I do have this on here, Elrond, Master of Rivendell, plastic box, 45 USD or 55 Canadian. So this is obviously the 3 different iterations of him. Yeah, and then again, a lot of like this stuff, like the terrain right here didn't make it on here, but this Rivendell dice set did. So the Rivendell dice set is $18 or 24 Canadian. And then we have the Garrison of Dale dice set as well, $18 USD or 24 Canadian. Nice looking dice, honestly. Yeah, and I'm just honestly not sure because like the Final Fate of the Witch King's not on here. I'm assuming because this was previously available. On to the Horus Heresy stuff. So then we have the Deimos Predator battle tank. So this Predator is 65 USD or 80 Canadian. So I think that was in line with the other Predator that came out here. Nice looking kit overall. If you like this aesthetic, if you want it to match like a certain era, timepiece, or style of an existing army, you know, this is obviously a crucial piece. So it can match your Rhino chassis, etc. Next we have the heavy weapons. So there's 2 sets of the heavy weapons here. There's the multi-meltas and plasma cannons. There's the volkite culverins and lascannons. Each actually includes a 3rd as well. But that's just for designation purposes. So either of the 2 heavy weapon sets is $42 or 53 Canadian. So $42 for either the heavy flamers, the multi-meltas, and the plasmas, or the same price for the autocannons, the volkites, and the lascannons. You do get 10 of each, and there's 3 different ones in each box set. So you're looking at $42, and you're looking at, 30 pieces of equipment or heavy weapons here. So it works out to about $1.50 a weapon. So if you're just after, the autocannons and you don't want any of the other weapons, the going rate is essentially $1.50 per weapon. So realistically, could these have come, in a smaller amount per box set? Are most people going to need 10 lascannons or 10 autocannons? Probably not. But, a Devastator squad or like the equivalent is like 4 heavy weapons right there. So it makes sense to put them in 10s. Why did they bundle them up the way they did? I think it's probably a lot easier than them just having each of the heavy weapons in a group of 10 and costing, $15 or whatever. It gets a higher price point. It takes away some of the stress of like the actual packaging costing so much, in Games Workshop's defense. They obviously claim that the packaging costs a ton of money. So packaging 3 weapons together as opposed to just 1 saves on some of that packaging, etc. So I'm not sure exactly what their reasoning is, but probably somewhere in between all of that. All right, so next we have the reaction cards for Horus Heresy. So these Horus Heresy reaction cards, I wasn't sure how many of it's going to be in here and like what the price is going to be exactly. It's 24 total cards. So it's not like a huge deck, but they are relatively fairly priced, I guess you would say. $16.50 for these or $22 Canadian. I imagine a lot of people would pick them up for that price. I think that's fairly reasonable. Next we have our data cards demons. So these were obviously lost in the warp, but they have made their way through here. So for the data card demons, we have 29 a regular price and 34 Canadian. So $29 for data card demons. For whatever reason, I might have passed it up or it just wasn't in this article. But we also have the Horus Heresy Liber Mechanicum, Forces of the Omnissiah book. This is the hardback book in English, and it is $50 or $60 Canadian. So we see this is a little bit cheaper than the previous 2 books that were out. And obviously we would expect the Mechanicum book to be smaller as well, as you have like less total selections. So then we have the Gore Chosen of Dran. So again, my issue with these, at first when I saw this, I thought there must be some models they're not showing off. It must be more than 3D guys, but apparently this is the whole deal. So Warhammer Underworld's Gore Chosen of Drum, $42 USD, 53 Canadian. So the price is still the same. It's cool that it comes with the decks and everything you need to play, but I'm just not sure how interested people are in buying a little 3 miniature pack for like $42. I guess if you compare it to a single character at like $33.50 to like $35, it's not bad. But I don't know. This just doesn't appeal to me. I think when these war bands had like 5 to 8 guys in them, they were a lot more appealing to get people to get some miniatures, get out there and paint and play and whatnot. It's an interesting choice to say the least. Next we have the Warhammer Underworld's Deadly Depth Rivals deck. $29 for this. 29 or 34 in Canadian. Again, you know, part of my problem with Warhammer Underworlds is it started off relatively like inexpensive, and you know now you're looking at a pretty hefty price to get started with a game even like that. So, White Dwarf, $4.80. So this one is $11 USD or 14 Canadian, right in line with what we would expect. And then we got a bunch of like Forge World stuff and everything coming out, but that is actually it for the prices I have for this week. So we got just about everything on here. The main thing that I was curious about and didn't get was how much the various Lord of the Rings battle packs were, like your little force. So I didn't actually get that. We'll have to see on the day what the prices are on that, and I'll give you a more accurate idea. I would think the idea would be to keep them below $100. I have a feeling they probably are closer to like 129 or something like that. That's a complete just shot in the dark with no reference of what they've been previously. But I would just assume that what we're seeing here from GW is they're basically pricing the Lord of the Rings stuff the same way they price like Sigmar stuff. So I would imagine these battle hosts are like the equivalents of the Vanguard detachment for Age of Sigmar, which is right around like that 130 mark. So that's what I'm guessing these are priced at. I think closer to like $100 or 99 or something like that. They would sell probably a lot better. Again, I think one of the big issues here is the quality of the miniatures is still nice, but the scale is shrunken down. So you get a lot less miniature, even if the quality is still nice. There's just only so much you can jam in these tiny little miniatures, as opposed to like, you know, the 28, 30 plus like millimeter, like heroic scale of 40K, and even realistically Sigmar now. So I think the miniatures are the big game breaker, at least for me. I know a lot of people like them, and they are nice quality miniatures compared to a lot of other stuff out there, especially at this scale. But I'm just really not interested in the scale. I was one of the few people that, as Games Workshop has like ramped up the scale on all their miniatures, I've been happy with it. I appreciate it. You can do better paint jobs. You know, they're easier to handle. They're less likely and like to have small little fragile details, etc. So overall, I'm happier with the larger scale. So you guys let me know what you think. Let me know the prices. Does this Middle Earth set line up with the prices for like the typical Middle Earth stuff? I know like for me, I was expecting this to be less than 210. I know that's like what the Kill Team box came out at. But like for instance, here's a big, you know, big one in my opinion is if you're trying to get people into a game, you need to have the starter set be cheaper. So if this is like the starter set, everything you need to play, it should be cheaper than 210. Does not make sense to me to have this at 210. You know, even like the Warhammer 40K, which is the #1 biggest, most popular game in, you know, essentially the world, definitely from Games Workshop, you know, without a doubt. And the starter set for that is like less than $200. I want to say the starter for that's like $180, and you get quite a few miniatures with that. Not quite this many, and you don't get, you know, as much of a selection and everything, but you get a nice set of terrain that's at least this much terrain. You get a board to play on, you get all your books, and you get your 2 armies to start with. And like the Necron and Space Marine armies are both pretty nice. And I want to say at this point in time, it's like $185 for that starter set. It's definitely not this expensive. So for me, and it's the same for the Sigmar set. The same Sigmar set is the same thing as well. You know, you get a bunch of terrain, you get 2 really nice forces in it, etc. So in my opinion, it's just not, you know, pricing this above your main ticket items just doesn't really make sense. I mean, it's $185 right now for the Command Edition of 40K, and you get, you know, 5 nice pieces of terrain basically, and some scatter terrain. You get a bunch of intercessors, you get a bunch of bikes, you get the character, you know, you get a lot of stuff. And then for the Necron Force, same thing. You get a pretty nice setup for your Necrons as well. And at 185 USD versus the 210 for this USD, you know, you're paying an extra 25 bucks for this. It's a much less popular game. I don't know. It seems like a complete miss to me, a complete mispricing, etc. And that's with the, you know, starter set for 40K having gone up in price. You know, with that, you're getting your librarian, you're getting 5 intercessors, and you're getting 3 of the bikes. And then for the Necron side, you're getting the Overlord, you're getting 3 of the Scorpack destroyers and their little plasma scythe. And then you're getting 3 Scarab Squirms and 10 Necron Warriors. So it's not quite as many models, you know, but it's everything you need to play. It's nicer models, nicer terrain, and it's still cheaper. So in my opinion, this is a complete miss. I don't think this is going to do well. I'm sure there's going to be a certain number of people out there that just love Lord of the Rings that will buy this. I've heard from quite a few people. I know it's not just me, but like I literally have, I don't think ever met anyone that regularly plays Lord of the Rings. I think this is very, very small group of people that play this game, and probably just a slightly larger group of people that, you know, purchase the stuff when it comes out and are more like collectors or whatever. And that's fine. But at 210, you're completely eliminating like any casuals from picking up this set, in my opinion. And I think an important thing that GW relies on is people just making regular purchases and casuals just picking up, you know, everything. So if you rule out all the casuals, what are you really left with? What's the player base? What's the collector base? You know, probably just a fraction of the people you could potentially sell to. So would you rather sell 1,000 of these kits to the hardcores at 210, or would you rather sell, you know, 10,000 of them to all kinds of casual players out there and make the game good and price it at, you know, 130 or something? I mean, and I'm just throwing those numbers out there, obviously, but in my opinion, this is a complete fail. Definitely full on GW price bloat, or, you know, Lord of the Rings tax on this. Just blows my mind. But it is what it is. I guess that's the direction they're going with. We'll see how well it does. I'm definitely pulling for the people out there that play this game and enjoy these models. I think overall it's a nice set. It's definitely cool. I could see how it would appeal to people. The terrain looks good and everything. You get a lot of models in it. 210 for this though. It's just overpriced in my opinion. You guys let me know what you think. Always like to hear your opinions, but we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. That is this week's official prices. Sorry we couldn't get a hold of the individual boxes for Lord of the Rings prices there. I tried and was unable, unfortunately. So, but we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If you did enjoy today's video, if you like these reactions, reviews, and news, painting, modeling, conversion tutorials, make sure to like and subscribe. Really helps out the channel. We do daily videos on Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team, Necromunda, Age of Sigmar, Warcry, Horus Heresy, and of course some Lord of the Rings as well. So make sure to like and subscribe. Really helps out the channel, guys. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.